And so now we have a product that people can test and within a week or two go, wow, okay, so we're spending 50% less and there's no change in conversions. Sign me up.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Paid Search NYC podcast. Today, very excited to be chatting to Matt LeBaron, who is the CEO of a company called Revvim. Now, most people in the paid search industry will have heard of Revvim, and especially their main product, which is AdAi, which helps advertisers understand the incrementality of their brand paid search. And we're going to be talking a lot about that product. We're going to be talking specifically about product market fit for a SaaS business within the paid search space. So very excited to get into that. But before we do, Matt, welcome and thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you. Now, this came about because about 2 months ago, you did a 12-part B2B SaaS leader series on LinkedIn. And one of those things on there was product market fit. I think when we chatted, you mentioned you were kind of maybe bored on a flight home from London and started to write this out. Maybe tell us a little bit about what inspired you to put that series together.
Yeah, sure. I'm surprised anybody saw it, but I don't really do a lot of self-promotion. That's not really what motivates me. A lot of people are on LinkedIn posting all the time and building a personal brand. That's not been something that's been of interest to me. But exactly right. I was on a long flight back from London some months ago, and I said, you know what, I need to capture some ideas and put something out there because we've reached a point in Revvim where we're starting to feel successful as a small business. It takes time to reach that, and we're just starting to feel that. And so I wanted to kind of capture my thoughts while they were still fresh, and share a little bit about what we did in order to achieve this success, primarily for business leaders out there. I think I have great love and respect for entrepreneurs of all shades, people that go out trying to change the world and taking risk and oftentimes low salaries and all sorts of things in order to make a company come about. And so I wanted to share some of the lessons that I'd learned along that way, because everybody has bumps in the road. We've had plenty of them over at Revvim. And so I thought it was neat to call those out. So that was the impetus for that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure I speak for many people when I say that was great, and please share more. And hopefully we can sort of surface some more of those insights in this episode as well, because, like you say, there's a lot of people working on that stuff. It's not easy. It's very hard. We've had a few other SaaS founders on here, and they talk about. I'm trying to remember one particular quote. I think it was maybe Andy, a friend of mine, mentioned it was like periods of joy followed by huge amounts of existential dread. Was how he described it. So yeah,
as a bootstrapped founder, I can definitely relate to that. I mean, so I started Revvim back in 2011, and when it was first started, I literally reached out to some engineering buddies of mine. I came out of an engineering background, databases and software, and the intersection between technology and search marketing. That was kind of what I'd done for other businesses before founding Revvim. And I'd done some consulting as well before that. And I reached out to some of my engineering buddies and I said, hey, I've got an idea for a product. And I'd love to, got this little project here. I'd love to have your help on it. And if it turns into something, I'm happy to give you a piece of the pie, right? And so it started off with me and 5 other folks that I had relationships with that built the initial proof of concept and websites and technology. And one of those was a patent agent who helped us patent this technology back in 2011 around a product that is now defunct. So at least we're not offering anymore, but it was at the time called Catalyst. And so our first swing as a company was a technology that maximized revenue in the SEO space. Basically, it would look at your entire portfolio of keywords and the entire portfolio of pages and content and do a kind of a sophisticated mapping, solving an equation essentially to maximize revenue across the entire set of keywords and the entire set of pages. And once we did that, we then were able to identify exactly what tweaks or changes could be made to each page in order to maximize the entire revenue across the entire set. Because in the SEO space, whenever you optimize for a given keyword, when you focus a page on a given search term, you're really de-optimizing it for other search terms. So there's always a give and a take that happens. So if you have a web page that ranks well for gourmet hot dogs, as an example, but people out there have links that come into it talking about it being gourmet sausages, you may rank well for sausages and not even know it. And your own page that you've created is not optimized for that. But if you become aware of that and then optimize that page for gourmet sausages, then you can find really strong rankings that align with how other people are referring to you. So that's what the technology did, and it was successful from a tech perspective. It did exactly what I described. It helped people grow SEO revenue significantly, but we had challenges scaling it, candidly. So one of the challenges was that the system essentially made recommendations that you would then, being an SEO person in a company, would have to implement. And what I learned is that most of the people working at companies already have full-time jobs. And so creating a tool that gives more work, essentially, even if it's the right thing to do, even if it's going to deliver value, oftentimes we would have customers that say, hey, the tech is great, but we just haven't really found the time to implement as many of these recommendations as we like. And so, a year or two or whatever the contract term was, we're not going to be able to move forward, And so that product, technically successful, but kind of a failure as a product. I mean, it paid a whole bunch of people's rents and mortgages and things like that, but the company was small, and it was our kind of first go at creating a SaaS solution, and from there we then iterated more products, trying different things, and it took us quite a while to find a really good product. It wasn't until 2020 that we launched AdAi. But prior to that, we had a handful of other products. Some of them were, I would say, to use an American baseball analogy, singles and doubles. And then AdAi has come out as just an incredible grand slam home run with, large numbers of very large businesses and agencies seeking to adopt it at scale. And so as of today, I think we have about 310 or something enterprise and agency customers that are using this. We long ago passed 5 billion in annual Google ad spend on the platform. We stopped counting a couple of years ago, and it was at 5 billion. It's too much right now to kind of wrap my head around. But so that's the technology that finally really found amazing product market fit, and we made a lot of, I can say, smart decisions along the way. Some of those were because of lessons that we learned from our previous failures. Some of them were accidentally making good decisions. Luck is an important part of life in general and business especially. So,
yeah, that's awesome. That's a great story. I want to go back to Catalyst was the first product.
Yeah, that's right. SEO Catalyst, what we called it.
When you were formulating that idea and talking to the people you eventually founded that with, was it something you were building alongside a full-time job, or did you just jump straight in because you had the confidence? What was that process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my background prior to that was in the paid search space. I wrote my first automated bid management system in 2004. I told you I came out of databases and things like that. So it was an early, bidding algorithm essentially that had a bunch of features and components. You could maximize for volume at a given CPA or ROI. You could maximize profitability. You could do things like that. And the company I worked for at the time, Shop.com, pursued a patent on that algorithm, and that was my first kind of experience with, oh, hey, you can patent stuff. That's cool. And when I left Shop.com, I went and started doing search marketing consulting, basically helping businesses, some small and some very large, to get the most out of their search marketing efforts using the experience I'd had as a hands-on keyboard kind of developer slash paid search manager, because I'd done both of those things. And at Shop.com, I'd overseen a budget of about, I think, 12 million a year or something like that, and I'd built automated tools to manage that for me. And so that was kind of the background coming out of this. And I'd always thought there was something similar to a bid management system that could be built for SEO. That was the impetus for the idea. And I said, because I was also responsible within that Shop.com environment, I was also responsible for organic traffic. And I said to myself, well, there's got to be a way to know every change that I should make to each one of these 6 million pages on this website, and to be able to estimate the impact of those changes and to prioritize them so that I could have teams of people that would be making updates to web pages that would be impactful and really drive revenue growth. And so that was the idea behind Catalyst. And I thought it through, and I do algorithms. That's one of the things I like to figure out, systems and how to act upon them and within them. And so that was the initial idea. That was the catalyst for the product. And I'd had this idea back in 2007, And that's when I left shop.com and I started doing consulting. I ran a little consultancy for a while called New Day Consulting. I've basically been fired from shop.com, and the next day my wife is like, "Hey, how are you going to pay the bills? What if you're never hired by anyone?" And I said, "Well, I'm sure that's not going to happen." But so I said, "It's a new day. I'll go ahead and start an LLC and a little consulting firm." And that's literally how that came about. So I did that for about 3 years, and what I found is that thankfully, I'm sure my wife is grateful I was able to pay the bills, and also candidly, make more than we needed for our immediate family. As a expert in a field, which I probably was considered at that time, I could command a good salary and a good hourly rate as a consultant. And what I did is I ended up taking some of the quote unquote excess funds that I didn't need for my immediate family needs and my kids and my dog, as you can see back there now, and I used those to pay people to help build out this new corporation, the new corporate entity that I created called Revvim. And as I onboarded additional clients for consulting, instead of onboarding them on my LLC, I onboarded them within the Revvim corporate entity. And so that cash started flowing into that business. And so it's literally bootstrapped. We have these initial 6 individuals, myself one of them, that founded the company. And those people have, I guess they call them founders shares in that company. They were given equity in return for their sweat, so sweat equity as they call it, and that built the initial version of the product. And then I hired engineers who were better than I was to be able to really make the technology robust and stable. I'm great at building quick prototypes and things like that, but I'm not a good programmer in terms of building robust solutions. And I recognize that about myself, and so I hire people that are better than I am at that. So I funded
Nice.
it with consulting dollars essentially, and we never did take venture capital funds. We had some opportunities to do so, and we thought about it. I'm personally I'm told I'm stubborn and ornery, and I always take that in a good light. I don't know that they mean it that way, but but I really didn't want to have people kind of looking over my shoulders and kind of demanding more and more and more. I also feel very strongly in treating people like people, as opposed to resources to be squeezed to get every last drop out of individuals or team members. And I feel like in my experience in Silicon Valley, I saw quite a bit of that. Right? I think I was subject to that at times, and at times I was asked to be the squeezer, by people who were squeezing me. And I wanted to run a company where I didn't do that, and I didn't have people that were kind of expecting me to do that. So thankfully we haven't had to do that. And so we now run a company that is, growing and profitable, and we don't have anyone kind of leaning over our shoulders to get the absolute last drop out of every last person.
Nice. That's definitely a good thing.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, in the period where you went from consulting to Revvim, and then you started to bring clients onto the Catalyst product, how long was it before you realized that, okay, this is something that is in demand? Like people want this, they will pay for it. Was it fairly immediate? Did it take 3, 6, 12 months? What did that look like?
So the company was founded, if I recall, July 1st, 2011. I think we probably had our first Catalyst customer within the first 3 months or something. And candidly, it was our consulting clients. I could basically go to teams that already knew me and trusted me and were using me mostly for SEO consulting at the time, some paid search consulting as well. And I said, hey, we've got this technology that we think is going to help grow revenues, and I'd love to have you try it out. And my beliefs in doing business is I very much want to stand behind what it is that I do. And so I always offered people basically a 30-day risk-free trial. And I've done that with every technology that we've brought to bear, including AdAi now. But back then, I said, hey, if for any reason you feel like it's not a fit in the first 30 days, just let us know and we'll stop providing it. You don't have to pay us anything. And so that's maybe greased the skids a little bit, or allowed people the freedom to try things, and they could see, the impact fairly quickly. This technology, Catalyst, was able to essentially drive meaningful impact within SEO within just a few weeks. And so within that 30 days, they would most of the time start to see, some improvements. And so that worked well for us. So yeah, so I would say, and that was our main product for a few years. It was enough for us to grow to a small team of maybe a dozen people that were being funded by the company by Catalyst with a few dozen customers, but it never got very large or anything like that. So I
Yep.
have some people in my team that are like, hey, we got to bring that back. It was such a good tech. But we did have these challenges with scaling, at the time. So.
And was that the kind of point you got to where it was like, we've had some growth, like there is demand for this product, but we've hit a ceiling at this level, and it's actually just becoming very difficult from like a time investment perspective to get any bigger. And so was it at that point where you felt like you wanted to focus on something that had larger potential, or was there a
Yeah,
different reason?
yeah, I think I think we were looking. So we never wanted to be a one product company. We wanted to have a handful of products, and we do right now. We were talking earlier. We've got in addition to AdAi right now, we have Fraud AI in market. We also have a product called React, and other things like that. But in those days, yeah, I think the writing was on the wall that this was a heavier load to carry than I wanted.
Mm.
And so we were looking for effective products that were very obvious. The value is very obvious. The pain point was very obvious, and that we could bring to market, and that would be. I also wanted to avoid being a reporting platform. We kind of did that with Catalyst, and it was very time consuming and expensive to build out a reporting platform with all the different visualizations and metrics and dimensions, and people would come back and say, hey, all of our other reports show revenue in green and clicks in blue. Can you change that? Right. And so, okay, well, now we got to customize it for every customer, and all those types of things, or we had to just say no. And so it was through that product of exploring that we did a number of products that were launched. Some of them were never meaningful. Some of them were small and had potential and then AdAi was an opportunity that we saw where essentially everybody in the paid search industry knows the problem with brand incrementality. I think it's very rare to find someone that goes, oh yeah, the brand's 100% incremental and everything's great, right? There's always that question, and especially even if you don't have that question, sometimes it's hard to find the data to be able to communicate your view on incrementality to senior management. And then people make, sometimes poor decisions. For example, turning off ads when they really should be on, or
Mhm.
paying too much for ads when they don't need to. And there's an obvious solution there, which is to have a system that kind of monitors the environment and takes the right action for you. And that's what we designed it and patented it back in 2020, and then brought it to market and called it AdAi. And it's evolved quite a bit since then over the last 5 years.
Yeah. I'm curious, and hopefully my last one or two questions on Catalyst, but it's the connection into AdAi. But it feels like you no doubt can draw a lot of successes and a lot of great lessons learned from that first product that led into AdAi. And it wasn't necessarily that you had a bad product. It was reasons of it perhaps didn't quite align with what you wanted to work on, and perhaps like maybe you're thinking into the future of like what has larger scale, what maybe more than just a reporting platform, like you said there. What were the things that you really took as like valuable lessons that really worked well that you then just replicated with AdAi from Catalyst?
So I would say some of our lessons were that so tech can be good, it can do what it's designed to do, and still not be a successful product. So the question is, how do you make good tech into a successful product? And one of the lessons we learned is that as much as possible, remove effort and obstacles from your customers, right? So, and that was a shortcoming in the Catalyst product, is that it required effort, and there were some obstacles sometimes to making updates to web pages. We talked to teams; they'd say, "Oh, well, engineering has to make these types of changes to the title tags. We can do the H1 tags, but whatever that, or URL changes, or 301 redirects, or any of those types of things." And so while the technology gave great insights and recommendations, that was what the scaling issue was. Candidly, it wasn't so much on our end, and maybe if I'd taken VC funding and had a few million in the bank to put into a more robust sales team and robust support team, we could have made that product work. That was just not something that I was ready to do at that time. each product that we launched after that, we tried to make cleaner and neater and less effort and just more automated and things like that. And I think we really kind of hit the nail on the head with AdAi, which is almost completely, I can almost say set it and forget it. It's not quite 100% there, but it actually I think will be by the end of this year. Essentially, set it and forget it. We're making additional improvements and still pursuing that dream of a tech platform that just does the right thing, improves your results, and doesn't require you to spend time or effort in that pursuit.
Yeah, makes sense. That's awesome. How quickly did you get to the version of AdAi that, not that we know now, but like the version that kind of got you to scale? Was it pretty quick, or was there some trial and error iteration of the initial product?
Yeah, definitely trial and error. So when we first launched AdAi, the vision for AdAi was that if you and by the way, AdAi doesn't work this way anymore, so you'll be able to contrast what we intended to what we've actually built right now. But the initial vision, and this probably comes back from having a focus on SEO for so many years, was like, well, if there's no competitor in the auction and you have the #1 organic listing, maybe you don't need the ad to run. That was the hypothesis that we had. And so we built tech that could essentially identify that state where an ad was cannibalistic, again, no competitor, and it's pushing down its own organic listing, and we would prevent that ad from running. And the theory there was that #1 organic listing would slide up to that top position, and you get that click and that customer for free, and everybody's really happy, right? And then we thought we could calculate the savings. That was pretty straightforward. There's some nuances there, but we could calculate the savings. And we made a decision to have the pricing model for the product be just a percentage of those savings. And so there was no setup fee, there was no retainer. We would just charge a percentage of the savings that we could prove that the platform had provided. And that has turned out to be a really good decision for us in terms of product market fit. It's allowed us to be streamlined. And of course, I carried with me that philosophy to let people try things and feel confident in them before having to pay for it. So we've always offered a risk-free 30-day trial, 30 days with full use of the tech, no obligation to pay for it. You only pay for it if you decide to keep using it. And at this point, like 92% of teams that try out the technology continue as paying customers. So it's working pretty well. But that was the original vision. And what we found was a couple things. Well, there's times when it's better to have the paid ad up. Number one, that's absolutely the case. We have reams of data, an embarrassing wealth of data that shows when that is the case. And not only do you see sometimes better results from having the paid ad, it's easier to prove those better results because Google has created the keyword not provided issue in the organic channel, meaning that you can't necessarily track from an individual click the keyword to the conversion event and the resulting revenue and so forth. And so when you remove an ad entirely, you have to adopt a holistic search mindset where we're looking at both paid and organic combined, and there's complications in how to measure and test when looking at holistic search. And so that slowed things down for us in our early days because people wanted to make sure that they weren't losing any revenue. And number one, it was time consuming and difficult to be able to prove that using holistic search methodologies. And then the second part is that sometimes it was actually better for the ad to be up. That's just the way it was, right? Not always. We still had plenty of large businesses that adopted our technology, even with those limitations. But we did, we lost some deals and had some failures along the way. And so what then happened is Google then launched Performance Max. This is 2022, I want to say, and it provided what on the surface looked like a problem for us, but ended up being the best thing ever, right? This is kind of cliche that it's the best thing. Some bad thing is the best thing ever, but in that it kind of was for us. And what that was is that when PMax was launched, if you removed an ad from an uncontested or cannibalistic ad, PMax would sometimes jump in there with an ad of its own, especially in the early days of PMax when there was no controls. You couldn't have brand exclusion lists. You couldn't do it. It was just there. And we're like, oh man, this doesn't work well. So our team very quickly, I was delighted with this, within literally days, built a solution for this. And that solution was that we would just keep the ad up. And what we found is that because of how priorities within Google's algorithms work is that if you had a search ad up, that it would take precedent over any algorithmic ad, and that's still the case today. So even if you had a PMax ad running at a $10 bid, if you had a search ad that was targeting that exact same keyword, and even if it was a 1 penny bid, it would prevent that PMax ad from jumping in there. And so our original intent was to simply block PMax so that we could take the ad down and continue along our way the way we'd originally designed the product. But what our customers came back to us and said, hey, so like sometimes these ads are running and they're running like a 1 cent cost per click. Can we do more of that? And we're like, well, we can't necessarily do more of that, but would you like to keep them up? And they're like, oh yeah. I mean, even if it cost more, if we could keep the ad up, that would be, that's what we really want. And we're like, well, okay. And so we made adjustments to our technology such that we were able to essentially identify exactly how to keep the ad up 100% of the time. And now this is all automated and sophisticated and things like that. But in the early days, we were kind of manually figuring this out. And then once we were able to keep the ads up 100% of the time, then all the traffic remained in the paid search channel. And it was very easy to see the savings and the benefit, and that there was no loss because we didn't have to bring in Google Search Console data and try to do a mapping between queries, as they're called in GSC, and search terms, as they're called in Google Ads. There's slight differences between those in certain cases, and the keyword not provided issue was gone, and it just became, everything just got a lot easier. And the second thing was that paid search teams suddenly liked us a lot more. and everybody wants to do the right thing for their business, but oftentimes paid search teams, I mean, you're tasked with driving as much value for your business at whatever your target metrics are, running ads. And so a technology that came and said, hey, we're going to make it so you don't run ads anymore. We definitely had people go, oh, well, we don't ever want to do that. And there's lots of valid reasons for that, as I've described, but there were also probably some folks who were like, no, I don't want that traffic going to the SEO team. That's my traffic, right? And so once we had made this ability, this configuration option to keep the ads up 100% of the time, now 95% of our customers run with that configuration option. And in fact, we now refer to the original configuration as our legacy configuration and we no longer promote it or push it, because as far as we can tell, the vast majority of people just want to keep the ads up, simplify things, reduce the cost, keep all the traffic in one place. There's so little change to the business, because because what AdAi does now is it keeps the same ad running at the same frequency, in the same position, and so it has the same click-through rate, and it's going to the same landing page, which means it has the same conversion rate, which means it has the same conversions and revenue. And so all the down funnel metrics from an ad impression down are the same. They don't change. The only thing that changes is the cost. And so now we have a product that people can test, and within a week or two go, wow, okay, so we're spending 50% less and there's no change in conversions. Sign me up. Whereas before there was a lot of, well, we've got to bring in the SEO team, and we've got to bring in our analysts, and we've got to look at this, and lot more effort, time and effort. So that was just transformative. And it took us until about, I think PMax launched in 2022. It took us until early 2023 to really get that, what I would say is pretty close to perfect product market fit. I mean, nothing's ever perfect, but it's really, really tight at this point.
So just to recap on the timeline, so the AdAi product, you say 2020?
Yeah, 2020 is when we launched the initial product. That we did the patents back then. We've updated and filed new patents as we've made new discoveries. But 2020 is when we originally launched it. Even with what I would call, even back then, it was a more successful product than any that we'd ever launched. It still took us probably 2.5 to 3 years to really get exceptional product market fit. And we actually have been hurt a little bit by how we originally launched the product. There's still some people out there that view us as that tool that removes ads, because that's what they saw us doing 5 years ago, even though we haven't really promoted that for 3 years. But those first impressions are lasting impressions, right? Yeah. And so that's a little bit of a challenge for us. Every once in a while we run across someone that says, "Oh, you're the guys that remove ads. We don't want to do that." And we're like, no, wait. That was years ago, right? We don't do that anymore, or at least we don't have to. Some people want us to, but very few. So,
yeah, I think it's such a compelling product offering, like I'm thinking about the things you said before around like really standing behind the product you're selling, make it very performance focused, so it's very easy to see the benefit, make it super easy to use, providing a free trial. These are all like really powerful things that if you can get right and have the right product, then it almost feels like it's I'm about to say it's easy. It's not easy, but it's just way more likely that you're going to have a successful product.
Even my sales team says it's easy. So they're like, actually, this is really easy. I can't believe this.
Well, that's good. So, yeah. And I guess the initial sales process for AdAi is you already had all the Catalyst customers to then say, hey, do you want to try this product? Like you already had like a bank of customers to sort of
we did, yeah,
test it. Yeah. Nice. That's awesome. I guess one other question on the whole product market fit thing, is there anything else we've not mentioned that you would recommend to somebody who is maybe toying around with an idea of like an MVP or looking to build something? Is there anything else you'd kind of recommend as advice, but perhaps something that you wish you'd have known going into it?
Yeah, I mean, I get it into market as quickly as possible. Don't try to make money off it initially and get feedback, because that feedback is incredibly valuable. I mean, you're hearing now that it took us, 3 years with a really solid product idea to achieve, really, really solid product market fit. And that was only because, the feedback that we got from customers. There's no substitute for customer feedback. You can't intuit or say, hey, this is what people are going to want, And I think it's a mistake that a lot of founders and builders make. I would also say in our case, the other thing that really benefited us. So again, we never took VC funding or anything like that. So we're very different than most businesses out there. I hear this all the time from investment bankers and such that I talk to. They're like, "What? You haven't taken any money? How did you grow to this size?" And one of the things that I would attribute that to, there's two things actually I would attribute to, but one of the big things is that we found a way to align the ecosystem and make everyone win together with this product. And what I mean by that is that we offered a referral program, we still do, for people with great networks and that, consultants and things like that, to introduce us to their network. And if one of those people became a customer, we'd pay them 10% thank you, for the introduction for the first 3 years of the engagement. And that was very, very simple way to essentially backload what would otherwise be marketing costs. We do no marketing effectively, so like we've never run an ad. We don't do LinkedIn campaigns. We don't do email campaigns. Like we do very, very, very minimal things. I think we have some business development reps that may do some outbound emails to specific, people that we know, or but we do next to no marketing. It's all word of mouth, and that word of mouth is from customers primarily, of course, and then from referral partners. And they, their interests are aligned, and they know it's a great product, and so they know they're going to look like a rock star introducing us anyway, right? They're going to, people are going to turn to them and say, hey, thank you so much for the intro. These guys are great. And then they also get, little bit of cash to buy them a dinner or two, essentially with it. So that's been really, really helpful for us. We also knew that people with great networks would also probably know other people with great networks. And so one time one of our partners came to us and said, hey, if I introduce you to somebody that makes introductions, can I get a piece of it? And we're like, hustler? Okay, sure. Why not? And so we expanded that at the request of our referral partners to, if you introduce us to somebody that in turn introduces us to someone, we'll pay you half of whatever we pay them. And then, and we do that ad infinitum. So it's possible that, we could have 3 or 4 people. And that to me as a CEO, I see that as marketing costs that I don't have to pay up front and that don't result in, ads that I have to, with copy that needs testing and then landing pages that need testing for conversion. It's literally warm introductions and from people that are already known and trusted, and our partners know we have a great product, so they're happy to make those introductions. And so again, everybody wins. We win, the partner wins, the customer always wins, and so that was really useful for us. And then the second thing is about the time we figured out really good product market fit, we also shifted from a focus on winning brands to an agency first go to market approach. And so initially we were reaching out to big companies and saying, hey, we've got this tech, and some of them on board and some of them didn't. But what we found initially when we were bringing a product to a brand is that they would say, well, let's bring our agency in and see what they think of it. And so, and very often that agency would be like, oh, well, that's not something that we suggested. Yeah, I don't know that we really want to spend our time on this, right? And so we'd get kind of the cold shoulder and shoot out. And we realized that our attempts at making an ecosystem where everyone won together had failed to include the agencies in that model. And so we wanted to update that and create a model where it could include everyone. And so the outcome from that was that we essentially created a reseller model where agencies could sell AdAi and benefit from it financially themselves. And so we now we have about 40 or 45, something like that, agencies and others, some non-agency resellers that sell AdAi. It's labeled as AdAi, or sometimes it's powered by Revvim. In the case of we do allow some, I think they call it clear labeling. So we don't do white labeling, but if they want to brand it along with their other offerings, we're fine with that, And then they just says powered by Revvim, so there's no confusion in the marketplace as to what it is. And then they sell it for the same price that we do. And the benefit to the agency is that our pricing, and this was from the get-go, has effectively a volume discount. And so that volume discount means that the more reclaimed spend, we take a percentage of the savings, or as we call it, reclaimed spend. That the more reclaimed spend there is, the less we charge, the lower the percentage we charge as a fee. And so agencies could essentially aggregate or group all the reclaimed spend from all of their clients that were using the tech and sell it and get a discount from us when we charge them. So they would charge their clients off the same rate card that we would charge the clients. But because of that volume discount, it would allow them to get a little, success fee effectively as well. And that's been incredibly valuable for us. There's no conflict in the marketplace. It's not like there's no one selling AdAi that I'm aware of for a different price than what we sell it for. We don't control the pricing that our resellers sell it for. We can't, I guess, legally. My lawyers told me that. Not that we want to, but and so I think everyone sells it for the same price. And so there's no conflict the way how many times has someone wanted to sell something to you? You're like, can I get it cheaper just going straight to the source? And that's not the case here, right? And if anybody who's being pitched by one of our resellers comes to us and says, hey, can I get it cheaper? We say, no, get it from your reseller. They're going to give you probably better services anyway. We're a tech company. We don't like people. We're not good at that. We can't talk. But that's not true. I'm kidding. Right now, my customer success team is going, no, but but no, we do really back our resellers and encourage those teams that are already engaged with an agency or some other provider that is a reseller to go through that reseller. So
yeah, got it. That all makes a lot of sense. I guess it sounds simple, but all of those things are facilitated by just having a great product. Like, it's just easier to get people who are referrals or want to talk about their network or resellers if it's a really good product, which it is. So yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, none of this works if the product's bad,
Yeah.
But this is just additive to it. And I have to admit, the realization that our pricing allowed us to have resellers that could offer the same product at the same price and still benefit from it, that wasn't something that we realized up front. That was one of those happy accidents. We found a little bit of penicillin there, made a discovery and oh, hey, did you realize that our pricing allows anybody to resell this and at scale make a lot of money and without any conflict in the marketplace? And I just don't see that anywhere else. I'm sure there must be other places like that, but usually if a business has resellers, they're either selling it cheaper to the reseller, or they're the resellers adding a fee or some margin on top in order for them, but that's just not the case in our model. So I'm shocked by it, to be honest, that I don't see other people doing that, and I think it's maybe people don't know how to do that because we didn't know how to do it either. We stumbled on it, candidly. But now that I understand it, and now that I know it and understand, I'm like, geez, I'm never going to do any business model but this, because it's so effective at aligning interests and outcomes without creating channel conflict or confusion in the marketplace.
Yep. Last question I have for you with the time we have left is related to AI and search. So obviously a very disruptive time. You've gone through the Performance Max introduction, adapted to that. What are you seeing with AI search within Google, both, I guess, from a just general observation, but then also maybe like opportunity threat as it relates to AdAi?
Yeah. So as everyone's probably aware, Google's been having AI overviews for about a year right now on some of their searches, and ads are now being placed within those AI overviews. I actually personally did a test with AdAi just a couple weeks ago, proving that we could actually act upon AI overview ads. So AdAi is already capable of optimizing those ads. That's not really material yet because they're so rare to see. And in fact, when I
Yeah,
was doing the test, I had a heck of a time trying to actually artificially create the conditions for an ad to show, even though I knew exactly, how to, Google has shared exactly the circumstances under which they show an AI ad, and even creating those circumstances artificially was very hard to get the ad to show. Um, but the tech works just fine in that. I assume there's going to be something similar in AI mode as they integrate ads into that. And
mm,
so I don't. So I think there's some misunderstandings in the market or around what AI search means, because the way I view it, I actually did this test earlier today. I went to ChatGPT and I typed in Nike. Now you're probably thinking, why would anybody type Nike into chat? That's not what ChatGPT is for. And you're absolutely right.
yeah,
That's kind of my point. But people type that into Google all the time, right? Just a brand term, right? So Google acts as a gatekeeper or a gateway into the internet, right? And they do so. They were very clever when they created the Chrome browser, because that kind of gave them even more of that gateway control. If you type something into, if you want to go to Nike.com and you type Nike, but you forget the .com, boom, there you are at a Google search results page. And well, I guess I'll click that sponsored thing there, and Google just made a little bit of money. And so I view, and actually I have to share this. I was on a hike in beautiful Mount Madonna in Central California with my daughter Sarah. She's 19 years old. She's smart as a whip. She goes to Stanford and is part of the Hogan Lab studying dark matter. She's super smart. And
oh wow,
I was sharing with her a little bit about my problems with AI searches we're doing on this 10-mile hike, and she said, "Well, Dad, that's because there's customers and there's questioners." I was like, "Oh, that actually rhymes even. I can remember that." Um, and she said, some people go to the browser, to the address bar, to Google, and they're customers. They're trying to engage with the company, and they're the ones that type Ford or Nike or whoever it is, and they just want to have some sort of engagement. Maybe it's a customer service engagement, maybe it's a purchase engagement, whatever it is. So the girl discovered purchase intent at age 19 without having any experience. And then she said, then there's people that want to understand the tyranny of the rocket equation, and they'll go to a chat GBT, and start typing in, fuel loads and delta V. And I'm like, she's lost me at that point. I'm like, what?
yeah,
Right. And so she's smart as a whip anyway. And so anyway, that's what I've realized, is that there's I don't actually see search changing as much as a new form of search being added on to what we've been doing. And that new form of search is the LLM style, large language model style answers. And those are now appearing as an additional thing on top of what we've all done and found very useful in the past. And the non-Google LLMs aren't even trying to do, at least not yet, what Google has done so well, which is to create this very simple pathway for people to find what they're looking for in the form of branded search, as an example. So to answer your question, I think there's an opportunity within the new AI search and the answer format, for all of us. Change is always opportunity, right? For those that can identify what's happening and act upon it, not be acted upon. But I think in terms of the core functionality or the value that, for example, AdAi brings, I don't really see that changing in the next 5 years. Maybe it's hard to look in the future beyond 5, 6, 10, 7 years, 10 years. But I see people continuing to want to get connected with the brands they love. And I've seen personally, brands like Nike, there'll be like a million searches a day during the holiday season, and correlating that are a massive spike in purchases. So this is not by accident. These are people using these search engines to do that. And I don't see an incremental value to use like a chat GPT or Perplexity or something like that for that type of intent, and so maybe if ChatGPT becomes your default search engine, maybe then you just do that, but you'll quickly go, oh no, I better go to Google or whatever, I better, So so I think Google's in a very, very strong position because they have trained billions, literally billions of users on how to connect to the search or connect to the websites that they want to find, and now they're just adding on a new capability. It may not be as good as the ChatGPTs of the world, at least not yet. I think at some point it'll become kind of a commodity like all these technologies do, more or less. That's my view. I don't think things are going to change as much as we expect them to for purchase-related or purchase intent-based searches. I do think that for research, these questioner intent searches, that it's a whole new ball game. But I also finally believe that even in those environments, there's going to be room for advertising. Google's not going to give up its $200 billion plus a year revenue stream. And these other businesses aren't trying to kill that revenue stream. They're trying to participate in it, right? And so there will be the integration of ads into those formats. So I see AI answers as a new ad format and placement, and that's not that different from 2007 when the iPhone entered the market, and suddenly we all had little computers that we were carrying around with little web browsers, and suddenly there were little web ads, right?
Yeah.
And so it was just a new format and placement. So that's what I think is going to happen with AI mode and AI overviews. It's already happening. I think it'll happen with AI mode. I think it'll happen with Perplexity and ChatGPT and others as they try to figure out revenue models to sustain their business. They're trying to avoid those advertising-based revenue models, and Google did too. I mean, I forget which one. One of the two Google founders, Larry or Sergey, is on record saying, "Oh yeah, we're never going to run ads," and then like 3 weeks later, like, how many billions? Oh yeah, we'll run ads, right?
Yeah.
So if the other LLMs are able to attract the audience of users, I would be shocked if they don't eventually embrace that at some point, even if the purest founders don't want to. Once they become, a corporation with shareholders that are seeking to maximize return, I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I agree. I think that the one thing there that I think of is human nature to almost look at the new thing and think the new thing's going to replace the old thing.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like that's our default, whereas more often than not, it's just that the new thing is incremental, and the new and the old thing exists. And I'm thinking AI search. You talked about mobile there. I'm sure if I look back, I could probably find examples where everyone said, well, the desktop's gone because everyone's going to have these handheld devices. Yeah. I think even crypto, like, real money's gone, it's all crypto. It's like, no, these are all incremental.
That's a great way of
they
putting
exist
it.
Together.
Yeah. Invention is incremental and additive. Sometimes things go away. We don't see too many people, running horse and carriage around the streets of New York, wherever. But maybe a few out there. But I don't see a major change in the next 5 years. I mean, who knows what's beyond that? I mean, there was a time when mobile, talk about other things. People were like, oh, voice search, it's going to replace everything. There's only going to be one answer. Remember Alexa first came out? They're not going to have 10 answers. It'll be whatever Alexa speaks back to you.
Yeah. Awesome. This has been really fun, Matt. Loads of great insights. Really enjoyed it. So thanks for coming on.
Me too. Thanks, Matt. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks to all the listeners too. Take care.